Under the warm afternoon sun, our former dumb gangster, Kim Junsu, works diligently in a sweet potato field, looking much more like a seasoned farmer than a former John Wick. His neighbors appreciate having such a strong young man around to help with the heavy lifting, though they jokingly admit that he looked quite intimidating when he first arrived in their quiet neighborhood. While Junsu enjoys the simple satisfaction of a self-harvested meal, he can't help but reflect on his past life as a professional fighter where the only thing that mattered was the strength of one's fists. He spent 3 decades living by that brutal belief before realizing that the modern world has no place for old-fashioned thugs who rely solely on muscle. His attempt at a normal life hadn't started well, as he remembered the sting of a past rejection where a woman found his rough edges too much to handle. Even his former organization eventually decided they had no more use for him, leaving him to wander into the countryside to find a new purpose. As he sits on his porch wondering if he ever could have been a simple clerk with a normal family, the peaceful silence is shattered by the screeching tires of a luxury car at his front gate. 2 stylish young women step out of the vehicle, looking completely out of place in the rustic setting as they complain about the smell of the countryside and the humble nature of the house. Junsu is stunned to see his former boss emerge from the car, looking as sharp and intimidating as ever. The legendary leader explains that he has a small favor to ask and expects Junsu to take care of these 2 young ladies for a while. Though he tries to act composed, Junsu immediately reverts to his loyal subordinate, eager to prove he is still useful to the man who once gave him direction. The boss offers a cigarette as a parting gesture, but Junsu politely declines, realizing that he needs to make a good impression on his new housemates. As the luxury car speeds away, Junsu is left standing in the dust, realizing that his quiet retirement has just been replaced by a much more complicated assignment. Inside the house, the atmosphere becomes heavy as Junsu officially introduces himself as the assistant to the boss. The sisters, 21-year-old twins named Jang Rhea and Jang Yoon, are far from impressed by their new living situation. Rhea maintains a playful but slightly condescending smile, while Yoon makes it very clear that she finds living with a rookie gangster to be completely beneath her. They look around the traditional home with disdain, comparing the courtyard to a place where one might be buried rather than a garden. Junsu quickly realizes that these women are far more dangerous than any rival gang member he ever faced in the city. The power dynamic shifts instantly as the sisters decide that the house isn't big enough for all of them and suggest that Junsu should find somewhere else to sleep. Desperate to keep his home and fulfill his duty to the boss, Junsu drops to his knees and begs to stay, promising to handle all the cooking, cleaning, and heavy labor. Rhea finds his desperation quite amusing and decides that having a domestic helper who follows orders like a pet might actually be fun. Yoon remains cold and irritated, warning him to stay out of her way and not be a bother. As the sisters loom over him with a mixture of mockery and annoyance, Junsu begins to wonder if his peaceful life in the dirt was actually much better than the high-stakes survival game he has just entered. The morning peace at the traditional house is shattered by Yoon, who is already on the warpath while clutching an empty cardboard roll. She is absolutely furious that the bathroom supplies haven't been replenished, and Junsu can only offer a sheepish apology about his own frequent needs. Before he can even finish explaining himself, Rhea joins the fray with a laundry basket and a chilling smile. She is deeply offended that he mixed the white clothes with the colored ones, and the 2 sisters take turns scolding him until he feels completely overwhelmed. Yoon even adds a painful stomp to his foot just to make sure the message hits home, leaving Junsu to wonder how he became the target of such coordinated domestic fury. As the bickering continues, Junsu is hit with the startling realization that they have only lived together for 3 weeks. In his mind, the constant barrage of chores and complaints has made it feel like several years have passed already. He looks at the falling calendar pages in his imagination and feels a deep sense of dread about how much longer this lifestyle will continue. While Yoon tries to find joy in planting vegetables, Rhea remains unimpressed and bored by the rustic life. Junsu sees an opening to escape to the quiet fields where he feels most at home, but he is stopped once again for a very specific set of instructions. Rhea presents him with a delicate piece of clothing and insists that he wash it with the same care one would give to an expensive suit. She demands that he look her in the eye while learning this new task, which only makes Junsu more flustered and embarrassed. He realizes that these women have absolutely no sense of boundary or shame, treating him more like a piece of furniture than a man. The sisters find his tension amusing and send him off to the fields with a warning to be back in time to prepare dinner. Once he is alone, they laugh about his domestic failures and the fact that he doesn't even handle his own laundry with such care. Out in the fresh air, Junsu finally feels a sense of relief, though he is still haunted by the images of the sisters from earlier. He realizes that being surrounded by them day and night has pushed his patience to the limit, and he feels like a frustrated teenager again. He is exhausted by the manual labor and even more drained by the mental strain of his living situation. Deciding that he needs a moment to himself, he finds what he thinks is a secluded spot behind a brick wall to handle some very private business. He loses himself in a brief fantasy of being the one in charge for once, only to have the silence broken by a creaking door. He looks up in absolute horror to find Rhea standing right there, watching him with a wide, sussy grin. She finds his desperate attempt at privacy to be the funniest thing she has seen all day, and Junsu realizes that his secret moment has turned into his most embarrassing defeat. Junsu stands frozen in absolute horror, realizing that his attempt at a private moment has been witnessed by the very person he was trying to avoid. Rhea seems remarkably calm about the whole situation, strolling over to offer some mock sympathy and pointing out that he is only human after all. Her playful attitude only deepens his embarrassment as he frantically tries to claim that everything is a giant misunderstanding and is definitely not what it looks like. He realizes that being caught in such a sussy state by his employer's daughter is a professional disaster of the highest order. The atmosphere shifts as Rhea leans in with a look of feigned curiosity, wondering if her presence was the inspiration for his recent activities or if he had someone else on his mind entirely. Terrified of where this conversation is going, Junsu shouts at the top of his lungs that he has never once harbored any inappropriate thoughts about the ladies of the house. His desperate outburst is met with a cold, skeptical silence that makes him realize his sudden honesty might have actually disappointed her. He begins to tremble as he realizes that his life in this house will never be the same again. She quickly establishes a new set of ground rules, informing him that every aspect of his life is now subject to her personal approval. Whether he is doing the laundry, changing his clothes, or handling his private business, he must seek her permission first. She dangles the promise of silence over his head, letting him know that his secret is safe only as long as he remains her perfectly obedient servant. Junsu is left feeling like a defeated warrior, realizing that his quiet retirement in the countryside has turned into a high-stakes game of survival, where he has already lost the first round. After spending some time brooding in the dirt and fearing the walk back home, he decides to return and attempt to act like a normal human being. He finds Yoon proudly snacking on the tomatoes she managed to grow, but his attempts to offer a genuine compliment fall completely flat. His awkward praise makes her feel like he expected her to fail from the start, and she storms off in a huff after accusing him of having a mean spirit. Junsu stands alone in the yard, wondering how he managed to offend both sisters in a single afternoon. Just as he is mourning his total social failure, Rhea reappears from the shadows to let him know she witnessed his latest blunder with her sister. She notes that he is clearly struggling to get along with Yoon and offers a truly bizarre way to even the score. She points toward the precious plants her sister worked so hard on and commands him to perform his earlier sussy act right there as a form of petty revenge. When he hesitates, in total shock, she begins to adjust her clothing to provide a bit of encouragement, reminding him that, since he needs her permission for everything, he is now obligated to follow her scandalous command immediately. Rhea takes great pleasure in her new position of power, noting that Junsu must have had quite a lot on his mind to be so easily distracted in the yard. She finds it incredibly amusing that her mere presence was enough to catch him in such an uncompromising position. She reminds him once again that as long as he remains perfectly obedient, his secret will stay between the two of them. However, she decides to add a new rule to their arrangement, declaring that he is now prohibited from handling any personal business unless he has her permission to do so in her presence. Junsu can only bow his head in resigned silence, realizing that his dignity has officially left the building. After the ordeal is over, Rhea playfully suggests he find some hand sanitizer and take a very long shower before he starts his evening chores. She leaves him alone in the garden to cool down, leaving Junsu to reflect on how a simple desire for a quiet life led him to this point of total embarrassment. He feels a deep sense of guilt, wondering if his former boss would ever forgive him for being so easily manipulated by a couple of stylish young women. The peaceful countryside now feels more like a high-security prison, where the guards are constantly mocking him. Dinner time arrives with a heavy cloud of awkwardness hanging over the small table. Junsu eats his rice in silence, feeling completely entangled in the drama of both sisters and unsure of which one is more dangerous. To his absolute shock, the usually prickly Yoon is the one to break the tension. She offers him a piece of food and sincerely apologizes for being so difficult earlier in the day. She admits that she acted poorly for no reason and realizes that her frustration with their new home shouldn't have been taken out on him. She even suggests that he take more time to relax instead of worrying about her every whim. Junsu is genuinely stunned by this sudden display of kindness, as he never expected the younger sister to show such a soft side. He tries to wave off the apology, but Yoon remains insistent on making things right. Watching the two of them start to reconcile, Rhea decides it is the perfect moment to stir up some fresh trouble. She puts on her most innocent smile and notes how wonderful it is that they are becoming friends. She then suggests that they all go out and celebrate their newfound peace by sharing the tomatoes they grew together. While Yoon thinks of a simple garden snack, Junsu nearly chokes on his meal, realizing that Rhea is making a very sussy reference to the secret they shared in the yard just a few hours ago. He realizes that even at the dinner table, he is never truly safe from her sussy games. At the dinner table, Rhea is having a wonderful time teasing Junsu about the tomatoes, and the poor man is absolutely petrified that their secret might slip out at any moment. He watches in silent horror as Yoon innocently snacks on the very fruit he recently compromised in the yard, and he is too terrified to even look her in the eye. When he tries to politely decline eating them by claiming he respects her hard work too much, his plan backfires completely because she reveals the whole point of the garden was for them to share a meal together. Yoon sends him back out to the yard to fetch more tomatoes, which is the last place he wants to be after his earlier blunder. Once he is alone in the garden, Junsu becomes a nervous wreck and desperately tries to convince himself that he cleaned the plants well enough to hide the evidence of his private business. Rhea follows him out and continues her psychological warfare, making playful comments about how nice it is to eat things raw and unwashed, while Junsu feels his soul slowly leaving his body. The younger sister, Yoon, eventually grows tired of Junsu's strange and hesitant behavior and comes out to see what is taking him so long. In a moment of pure frustration, she vents about how everyone in her life pretends to listen to her while secretly looking down on her efforts. She reaches a total breaking point and begins to stomp on her own tomato plants in a fit of rage, destroying the very thing she was so proud of just a few minutes ago. She tells a shell-shocked Junsu to just throw the whole mess away and storms back inside, leaving him standing in the ruins of the garden. As night falls, Junsu decides that sleeping outside on the hard wooden porch is far safer for his sanity than spending another minute in the same room as the sisters. He closes his eyes and tries to pretend the rest of the world doesn't exist, hoping that faking a deep sleep will provide him with a moment of peace. His fragile silence is shattered when Rhea sneaks out of the house and decides that the most effective way to wake up her assistant is to climb directly on top of him. She laughs at his failed attempt to ignore her and points out that he is a very bad actor when he is nervous. She speaks softly about how her sister has always been prone to these dramatic outbursts and tells him not to let the earlier garden disaster get him down. Shifting the mood with a secret glint in her eyes, she mentions that a loyal assistant who follows every command deserves a special reward at the end of a long day. As she begins to adjust her clothing, Junsu realizes that his quiet night under the stars has turned into yet another high-stakes test of his self-control. The night on the porch continues, with Rhea maintaining her dominant position, laughing as she notes how poorly Junsu is handling the proximity. She observes that he seems unable to even perform the simplest tasks when she is around, and mocks his inability to hide his obvious discomfort. Her teasing takes a sharper turn as she questions whether his earlier sussy activities were actually inspired by her sister, suggesting that keeping such secrets is quite rude. She makes a series of incredibly bold and scandalous suggestions about how he should interact with her sister, leaving Junsu gasping for breath and completely unable to defend his honor. Before she finally retreats inside, she reminds him that his dream of rising through the ranks of the organization depends entirely on her satisfaction and his willingness to remain her loyal plaything. As the sun rises over the quiet countryside, Junsu finds himself back in the dirt, attempting to salvage the tomato garden that was destroyed during the previous night's tantrum. He reflects on the waste of effort, feeling a genuine sense of pity for the plants that were raised with such care only to be trampled in a moment of rage. His quiet morning is interrupted by Yoon, who appears looking tired and far less intimidating than usual in her simple loungewear. The atmosphere is thick with awkwardness until she finally mumbles a sincere apology, admitting that she was unfairly taking her anger out on him. Junsu realizes that she is just as out of place in this rustic life as he is, and his attempt to offer a friendly suggestion about buying new seeds nearly triggers another defensive outburst before they reach a fragile understanding about replanting the garden together. Just as a moment of genuine peace seems to settle over the yard, Rhea emerges from the house to shatter the silence with her usual brand of mischief. She finds their early morning bonding session to be absolutely adorable and wastes no time in teasing them about their sudden and suspicious activities. After Yoon storms off to avoid further embarrassment, Rhea corners Junsu against the wall to investigate his true intentions. She wonders aloud if he has stopped viewing her sister as a superior and has started seeing her as a woman instead, finding his desperate denials to be completely unconvincing. To test his resolve, she presses herself to him and notes that his reactions are telling a much more honest story than his words. Junsu is left trapped and flustered, realizing that no matter how hard he tries to play the role of a simple assistant, he is hopelessly caught in the middle of Rhea's relentless and playful games. Rhea continues to enjoy her position of power, noting how amusing it is that Junsu cannot even maintain his composure when she is nearby. She finds his honesty much more entertaining than his verbal denials and mocks the idea of him being a respectful assistant when he is clearly struggling with his own impulses. She even wonders if he would be this easily swayed by her sister, before reminding him that his path to success in the organization is paved with his absolute obedience to her every whim. She pushes the boundaries even further by insisting that he handle his personal frustrations immediately before he even thinks about starting his farm work. She brings up his previous attempt at privacy and graciously offers her permission this time, as if she is doing him a grand favor by allowing him a moment of relief. Junsu is left with no choice but to retreat to the bathroom, wondering how his life became a series of embarrassing assignments handed down by a woman half his age. Inside the shower, Junsu tries to make sense of the chaos, deciding that following these strange orders is probably safer than facing the wrath of a disappointed employer. Meanwhile, the younger sister returns from her morning run and heads straight for the bathroom, completely unaware that the room is already occupied. The resulting encounter is a disaster of epic proportions as the door swings open to reveal Junsu in a very compromising position. After a chorus of screams and a very clumsy retreat, Junsu is left cowering behind the bathroom door, offering the most nonsensical excuses about needing to scratch a simple itch. To his absolute amazement, the younger sister does not stay angry, but instead offers a calm and surprisingly mature perspective from the other side of the door. She suggests that such things are only natural for a man and realizes that he probably just feels a bit crowded living with two women before telling him to finish up so they can move on with their day. When Junsu finally emerges and reports this peaceful resolution to Rhea, the older sister is visibly rattled that her attempt to create drama resulted in actual bonding. Not to be outdone, she immediately pivots to an even more outrageous plan, convincing herself that her sister is simply playing hard to get and is actually waiting for him to take the lead. She commands Junsu to take a much more aggressive approach to win her sister over within the next 24 hours, leaving him once again hopelessly caught in the middle of a sisterly dynamic he will never truly understand. Rhea is in peak mischief mode, leaning in to tell Junsu that he really needs to take the initiative with her sister. She explains that Yoon has too much pride to ask for what she wants, so it is up to him to stop thinking so much and just act on his instincts. Junsu can only stand there in a daze, wondering how his simple life as a gardener turned into a series of psychological tests designed to push him to his absolute limit. Later that day, Junsu is back in the quiet field, trying to make sense of the wild instructions he received. He is genuinely confused because his interactions with the younger sister have been surprisingly calm lately, even after their previous accidental encounter. His thoughts are interrupted when Yoon herself shows up in the yard, looking remarkably humble in her sun hat and asking if they can handle the heavy digging together. Junsu is caught off guard by her sudden desire to be helpful, and they soon find themselves side by side in the dirt, though his nerves make every movement feel like a potential disaster. The work goes along in a tense but productive silence until Yoon tries to aggressively pull a sweet potato from the ground. Fearing she might ruin the crop, Junsu lunges forward to stop her, resulting in a very clumsy scramble that leaves them both flustered and avoiding eye contact. To make matters worse, Junsu happens to unearth a vegetable with a very peculiar and embarrassing shape, leading to a frantic and awkward explanation that every potato tastes the same once it is cooked. Yoon finds his erratic behavior and constant flinching to be quite suspicious, eventually finishing her share of the work and leaving him alone to contemplate the consequences of his next move. Back at the house, Junsu realizes that he cannot hide from his instructions forever and decides that being honest about his intentions is the only way forward. He finds himself near the bathroom, where the sound of running water tells him that Yoon is inside, and he is soon met by Rhea, who encourages him to stop hesitating. She playfully suggests that her sister is lonely, and that this is the perfect moment for him to finally be the man of the house. Stealing his resolve, Junsu ignores his internal alarms and walks through the door without knocking, surprising a very hackable Yoon, who immediately demands to know what he thinks he is doing. Instead of offering a sheepish apology and running away like usual, Junsu decides to follow the bold advice he was given by stepping closer and insisting that they finally address the truth about their feelings. He realizes that there is no turning back now as he takes charge of the situation, hoping that his sudden burst of confidence is exactly what she was secretly waiting for all along. Life for Jang Yoon had never been simple, as she often recalled the hushed whispers that followed her through the university hallways. Her fellow students frequently gossiped about her family background, claiming her father was a powerful figure in the underworld who had bribed her way into the prestigious department. While some of the young men found her appearance striking, they were far too intimidated by her supposed connections and fiery personality to ever approach her. She lived her life as a beautiful outcast, fully aware that everyone was avoiding her for reasons that had nothing to do with who she actually was. Back in the present, Yoon woke up in her bed feeling completely disoriented and weighed down by a heavy fever. She blinked at the ceiling, trying to piece together how she had ended up under the covers with a cooling patch on her forehead. When she heard the door begin to slide open, her first instinct was to shout at the person she assumed was Junsu. She was convinced the former gangster had done something inappropriate while she was unconscious, but her anger quickly turned to confusion when she saw her sister Rhea entering with a tray of warm porridge. Rhea wore a knowing smile as she explained that Junsu had actually rushed out to the village to buy fever medicine for her. It turned out that Yoon had grown dizzy and fainted while in the shower, and Junsu had been the one to step in and save her from a much worse accident. Yoon felt a wave of embarrassment wash over her, stubbornly claiming that she had only collapsed because she had overexerted herself doing manual labor in the vegetable garden. Rhea found this excuse highly amusing and leaned in to tease her sister, noting that it was quite rare for Yoon to let anyone see her in such a sussy state. After making sure her sister was settled, Rhea headed out to the courtyard to find Junsu, who was sitting in a daze and reflecting on the chaos of the day. She didn't waste a second before teasing him, suggesting that he must have quite a hidden talent for handling her sister if he managed to make her collapse from exhaustion. Junsu looked up at her with a mixture of frustration and disbelief. Realizing that the older sister had completely manipulated him earlier, he pointed out that her previous claims about Yoon being easy to handle were a total lie, and that the reality of the situation was nothing like what she had promised. Rhea simply laughed off his concerns, telling him that he should be happy he got to spend such a sussy moment with her sister. She made it clear that she understood exactly what was going on in his head, and that he didn't need to answer her with more questions. Before he could retreat to the safety of the fields, Rhea handed him a bowl of water and a towel with a new set of instructions. She noted that Yoon was still sweating profusely from her fever and insisted that Junsu return to the room to wipe her down, though she claimed it was for purely medical reasons. Junsu stood outside the sliding door, his heart hammering against his ribs as he stared at the bowl of water in his hands. He felt like a complete fool for going along with such a scandalous task, wondering what on earth he had been thinking when he agreed to help. He realized that even if he tried to explain his pure intentions, there was no way Yoon would ever believe him after everything that had happened. He took a deep breath and told himself that if he was prepared to face the consequences, he might as well be a man about it and finish the job. He crept into the dimly lit room and found Yoon fast asleep, looking surprisingly small and peaceful beneath the heavy blankets. He knelt beside her, hesitating as he realized he would have to move the covers to properly help her fever break. He worried that waking her up would result in his immediate demise, but he couldn't bring himself to leave her shivering in damp clothes. As he reached out to begin his task, Yoon's eyes suddenly snapped open, and she let out a startled cry, demanding to know what he was doing in her private quarters. Junsu tried to maintain his composure, awkwardly explaining that he was only there to help because she was covered in sweat from her illness. Yoon turned away from him in a fit of pique, blaming him for the fact that she had gotten sick in the first place. Instead of backing down like he usually did, Junsu remained firm and told her that he was only human and couldn't help but worry about her. He insisted that leaving her in that condition would only make him feel more guilty, so he planned to finish the task regardless of her protests. He promised to be careful and assured her that there wouldn't be any reason for crying this time, leaving Yoon to watch him in silent, wide-eyed wonder as he prepared to take care of her. Junsu hovered over Yoon with a damp towel, feeling the heavy weight of her suspicious gaze as he tried to explain his presence in her room. She demanded to know his true intentions, but he could only offer a sheepish excuse about wanting to help her cool down after her fainting spell. She was quick to remind him of his previous reckless behavior, making it very clear that she hadn't forgotten the chaotic events that had taken place earlier that day. Junsu felt a desperate need to clear the air and confessed that he had completely misread her signals during their time in the garden and the potato fields. He admitted that he had found her beautiful from the very beginning, which led him to create a series of embarrassing misunderstandings in his own head. Yoon dismissed his confession as a total delusion, yet she didn't chase him away and instead commanded him to stop talking and focus on the task at hand. As he carefully wiped the sweat from her back, she wondered aloud if he was the type of person who usually approached others with such sudden and overwhelming intensity. Junsu quickly assured her that he had never felt this way before, explaining that he saw a genuine warmth in her personality that most people never took the time to notice. He admired her efforts to grow a life in the countryside and admitted that he wanted to treat her like a person rather than just the daughter of a powerful leader. The conversation took a somber turn as Yoon wondered if he was still relying on his old thug habits to get what he wanted. Junsu felt a deep sense of shame as he realized that his past life continued to haunt his every move, making it difficult for anyone to trust his true character. He confessed that he was struggling to leave his former identity behind and expressed a sincere desire to simply live a normal, quiet life. Seeing the genuine sadness in his eyes, Yoon's sharp edges softened slightly, and she eventually told him that he could leave once the task was finished. Junsu retreated to the porch, feeling completely drained and wondering if he had permanently ruined his reputation in her eyes. He spent a long moment reflecting on the series of embarrassing disasters that had defined his stay at the house, from the bathroom incident to their most recent sussy encounter. Deciding that he needed to clear his head with some hard manual labor, he put on his sun hat and prepared to head out to the fields. However, his plans were interrupted when he nearly bumped into Yoon in the courtyard, leading to a moment of frantic panic. He immediately dropped into a dramatic bow and offered a long, rambling apology for his arrogance, even suggesting that his life was forfeit if he couldn't make things right. Yoon watched his over-the-top display with a mixture of annoyance and amusement, calling him a hopeless case who was probably beyond saving. Despite her harsh words, she admitted that it had become awkward to simply push him away after all the time they had spent together. She gave him a final warning to behave himself and stop hiding behind lies, which left Junsu feeling a strange mixture of relief and confusion. Just as he thought the lecture was over, Yoon turned a bright shade of red and asked him to confirm if his feelings for her were actually real. Junsu stood there in a daze, his heart hammering against his ribs as she reached out to firmly take his hand and suggested they go somewhere else to finish their talk in private. Junsu followed Yoon into the quiet greenhouse, feeling his heart race as the heavy door clicked shut behind them. He nervously wondered what the young lady could possibly have to say in such a secluded spot, but she quickly told him to stop acting like he didn't know exactly what was happening. She began to scold him for his constant wandering thoughts, accusing him of being the type of man who would lose his composure around just about anyone if left to his own devices. She even wondered aloud what would have happened if her sister Rhea had been the one in the yard earlier, though she quickly shifted the focus back to her own plan to fix his behavior once and for all. Standing amidst the plants, Yoon maintained a stern expression, while insisting that her actions weren't born out of any personal affection. She claimed she was simply trying to prevent him from causing further trouble for the household by helping him work through his natural impulses. Junsu was genuinely surprised that she would go to such lengths for his sake, but his realization only made her more flustered and defensive. In a sudden burst of bold energy, she told him that he was free to do whatever he wanted, even suggesting that he could take the lead without holding back. The atmosphere in the greenhouse quickly shifted from a stern lecture to a scene of absolute domestic chaos as Junsu finally lost his professional facade. His lack of experience and sudden surge of adrenaline led to a rather messy situation that left both of them completely overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment. Before he could even realize what was happening, his patience ran out and he ended up creating a significant amount of work for the laundry day ahead. Yoon was left sitting on the ground in a daze, coughing, and trying to catch her breath while wondering how a seasoned man of the underworld could be so utterly lacking in gentleness. Junsu stood over her in a state of frantic panic, offering a series of clumsy apologies for his inability to stop himself before it was too late. He silently noted that seeing the usually prickly young lady in such a sussy state was a sight he wouldn't soon forget, though he knew better than to say that out loud. Yoon wiped her face in frustration, calling him a crazy person and demanding to know why he had to be so rough and suffocating in his approach. She struggled to regain her dignity while adjusting her clothing, eventually telling him to take care of the mess and leave the room as soon as he was finished. Junsu was caught off guard by her sudden desire to leave, as he had recently spent some time researching the typical timeline for these sorts of interactions. He clumsily mentioned that he had heard men were supposed to wait a bit before continuing, which only earned him a swift and painful smack to the head from a very irritated Yoon. He tried to explain that he only looked into such matters because he wanted to be thorough, and he had assumed she would be satisfied by this point. However, as Yoon turned to walk away, she realized with a start that Junsu's reaction hadn't subsided at all. He stepped toward her with a look of renewed determination, noting that it simply wouldn't be polite for him to be the only one walking away satisfied from their secret lesson. Junsu found himself in yet another precarious situation as Yoon realized that a messy mistake had occurred during their secret lesson. He frantically tried to explain that the timing was simply off, and it certainly wasn't anyone's fault, though he felt a massive wave of relief when she mentioned that the day was safe for deep cardio activities. Yoon didn't see how that information was supposed to make anyone feel better, and she quickly grabbed him by the collar to give him a piece of her mind. She wondered if he was the type of person who behaved this boldly with every woman he met, or if he was simply trying to get into as much trouble as possible. Junsu could only offer a sincere apology while she brushed herself off, realizing that blaming him further was probably a waste of breath. After the chaos subsided, they took a seat on a wooden bench outside to share a quiet moment and some much-needed refreshments. Junsu felt a strange sense of peace as he looked out at the countryside, admitting that this was the first time he had ever experienced such a calm atmosphere with her. He reflected on the fact that they had been living together for nearly a month, and expressed a genuine desire to spend more time just relaxing and looking at the scenery like normal people. Yoon found his sudden display of deep emotion to be quite surprising, noting that beneath his careless exterior, he seemed to have a lot of feelings hidden away. The conversation grew a bit more personal as Yoon suddenly became curious about his past experiences and how he had learned to interact with women. Junsu admitted that while he had been popular enough in the past, his relationships never lasted very long because every woman eventually left once they discovered his history with the organization. Yoon teasingly suggested that his failures might have more to do with his lack of skill than his former career, which prompted a defensive Junsu to insist that he really was a hit with the ladies back in the city. He grew somber as he explained that he came to the countryside specifically to end his life as a gangster and that he truly had nowhere else to go. Junsu felt a deep sense of guilt for being so bold with the daughter of his former boss, but Yoon surprised him by admitting that she didn't actually hate his dream of living a normal life. She gave him a playful tap on the head with her water bottle and told him to just do his best from now on, promising to keep their secret between the two of them as long as he kept his mouth shut. Junsu felt a burst of happiness at her unexpected kindness, and for a brief moment, the two of them enjoyed a rare sense of mutual understanding under the warm afternoon sun. However, their peaceful retreat was cut short when they returned to the house, only to find Rhea waiting for them on the porch, like a watchful detective. The atmosphere turned incredibly awkward as they both tried to act like their simultaneous return was a total coincidence. Junsu clumsily claimed they had just come back from picking sweet potatoes in the field, but Rhea was far too sharp to fall for such a flimsy story. She immediately pointed out the obvious flaws in their alibi, wondering why Yoon was wearing indoor slippers to a muddy field and how Junsu's clothes could possibly stay so perfectly clean after a session of manual labor. Feeling the heat of her sister's suspicious gaze, Yoon made a quick and clumsy retreat toward the shower, leaving Junsu alone to face the music. Rhea stood there with a knowing look, watching the dirt on the floor and the nervous sweat on Junsu's brow with great interest. She made it very clear that she wasn't finished with him yet and insisted that they needed to have a very long talk. Junsu realized that while he might have reached a truce with one sister, the most dangerous game of all was just beginning with the other. Junsu stood frozen on the porch as Rhea leaned in with a piercing gaze, demanding to know the truth about what he and her sister had been up to in the fields. He felt the sweat beads forming on his brow as he desperately tried to stick to their sweet potato story. But Rhea wasn't buying a single word of it. She noted how suspicious it was that they were avoiding her, and she didn't appreciate being the only person in the house left in the dark. To assert her dominance, she pinned his leg down with her foot, reminding him that he was her personal helper and that keeping secrets from her was a very dangerous game. Junsu could only offer vague excuses about promises and secrets, which eventually led Rhea to let him go with a warning to focus on his domestic duties instead of whatever games they were playing. A few days passed in a tense but quiet routine, and Junsu found himself stretching in the courtyard, realizing he had been doing his farm work alone lately. He felt a strange sense of loneliness, realizing he genuinely wanted to spend more time with Yoon, outside of their usual chores. His thoughts were interrupted when the sliding door creaked open to reveal Yoon dressed in a stylish skirt and high heels, looking more like she was headed to a city photo shoot than a rustic garden. When he mentioned that she seemed quite overdressed just to buy some flower pots at the local market, he was met with a swift and painful kick to the shin. Yoon defensively claimed she just wanted to wear her new clothes, and Junsu realized that even a simple compliment could be a landmine when dealing with her pride. As they walked together toward the village, the atmosphere between them remained thick with unspoken tension. Yoon eventually broke the silence to ask how he had been getting along with Rhea when she wasn't around to supervise. Junsu admitted that their relationship was mostly that of a lady and her very stressed attendant, which seemed to trigger a wave of insecurity in the younger sister. She began to compare herself to Rhea, lamenting that her sister was much more mature, soft-hearted, and even prettier than she was. She recalled how she used to lean on her sister when they were younger and wondered if she would ever be the type of person others could rely on. Her vulnerability quickly turned back into fiery aggression as she warned Junsu that he would be in big trouble if she ever caught him doing anything sussy with Rhea. She accused him of being a hopeless case who got distracted by every woman he saw, and Junsu could only sigh as he realized he was being judged for his past reputation once again. They finally arrived at the small local store, and after Yoon finished her shopping, a struggle broke out over who should carry the groceries. Junsu wanted to be a gentleman, but Yoon was too stubborn to let go of the bag, leading to a clumsy tug-of-war that ended with the contents spilling all over the ground. The world seemed to stop as they both stared at the items scattered in the dirt. Amidst the seeds and gardening supplies sat a very recognizable, bright red box of personal cardio protection gear that had accidentally been swept into the bag. The silence was deafening as Junsu knelt to pick it up, his face turning as red as the packaging. Yoon was absolutely mortified, immediately blaming Junsu for the spill and claiming that his unnecessary chatter was the reason for this disaster. In a final, desperate attempt to reclaim her dignity through sheer boldness, she trembled with rage and embarrassment while handing the box back to him. She declared that they would continue their secret lessons until every single cardio pack was used up, and only then would she be satisfied and done with him forever. Junsu stands in a daze as Yoon reluctantly hands over the small red box she recently purchased. She makes a deliberate point to mention that the container only holds 3 pieces, which means he needs to be very strategic with how he chooses to use them. Junsu feels a wave of heat rush to his face and wonders if he is allowed to start their lesson immediately. But his eagerness only earns him a sharp reprimand from the young lady, who is already reaching her limit of embarrassment. Yoon looks around the open area with visible concern, noting that they are currently out in the public eye and have absolutely nowhere private to conduct their secret business. Junsu takes the lead and mentions a secluded spot nearby that he discovered during his frequent walks through the countryside. He carefully helps her navigate the rocky path leading under a bridge where the steady sound of the stream provides a natural shield from the rest of the world. Even though Yoon feels a bit skeptical about being brought to such a rustic location, she has to admit that it seems like a place where they will finally be left alone. As they settle into the shadows, Junsu suggests that she should prepare her clothes first to prevent the expensive new fabric from getting wet or stained by the damp river rocks. Yoon is momentarily stunned by the bold request and accuses him of being a complete deviant who is just looking for an excuse to see more than he should. Despite her loud protests, she realizes the practical logic behind his words and decides to throw her dress directly at his face to momentarily hide his gaze. She stands there in her sussy cloths, feeling incredibly exposed under the afternoon sun, and wonders if he is finally satisfied with the awkward situation he has created. Yoon issues a stern warning that the supplies must be used very sparingly and only when it is absolutely necessary. She makes it very clear that once the cardio box is empty, their secret arrangement will come to a permanent end without any further exceptions. Junsu takes a long moment to process this new rule and realizes that he needs to be much more careful with his resources than he originally planned. He then proposes a rather clever loophole, suggesting that as long as they do not use the specific equipment, the count remains the same, and their time together can be extended indefinitely. He looks at her with a calm expression and wonders if she would prefer to take the lead this time, or perhaps handle things in her own way. This suggestion sends Yoon into another fit of flustered rage as she tells him to stop talking nonsense and just finish the task once and for all so they can return home. Junsu calmly points out that he cannot simply rush into things when she is clearly still so tense and unprepared for the moment. The conversation takes an even more awkward turn as Junsu becomes curious about her private life before they met, wondering if she ever handled her own personal frustrations when she was living back in the city. Yoon is absolutely mortified by the question and insists that she would never do something so beneath her dignity. However, under his steady and curious gaze, her resolve begins to crumble, and she eventually confesses that her stressful life at the university led her to seek relief at least once a week. They both sit there in a heavy, blushing silence, completely overwhelmed by the sheer amount of honesty they have shared in such a strange and secluded place. The night takes a bizarre turn as Junsu finds himself trapped in a vivid and terrifying nightmare where the boundaries of his new life completely collapse. In this dream, he is back with Yoon in a scene of high-stake cardio practice, where she playfully shakes a carrot at him as if it were the most important lesson in the world. Just as things reach a peak of strange intensity, the silence is shattered by the boss bursting through the door, with Rhea leading the way like a vengeful detective. The legendary leader is absolutely livid to find his former subordinate so close to his daughter, and wastes no time in grabbing Junsu by the neck to deliver a final, lethal lesson in loyalty. Yoon can only wail about her ruined future, while Junsu feels his very life slipping away under the boss's iron grip. He jolts awake in a cold sweat, screaming for mercy, before realizing that he is still safe in his own bed, and the terrifying encounter was nothing more than a trick of his mind. He takes a moment to steady his breathing, reflecting on how even his subconscious is now haunted by the complicated web he has spun with the sisters. The sound of heavy rain hitting the roof brings him back to reality, and he feels a strange sense of relief that the weather provides a valid excuse to avoid the fields. He realizes that if his dreams keep getting this messy, his heart might give out long before any real-world consequences ever catch up to him. As morning arrives, the trio gathers in the main room, where the atmosphere is as damp and heavy as the downpour outside. Rhea is busy with her notes, while Yoon scrolls through her phone, and the silence is only broken when the older sister wonders if Junsu plans to head to the field despite the storm. When he points out the obvious weather conditions, Rhea offers a playful smirk and notes that she expected such a dedicated assistant to be willing to work through even a blizzard. Junsu tries to ignore the teasing, feeling drained from his chaotic rest and the lingering image of Lady Yoon from his dream. The mood shifts when Yoon shows him a picture of a massive plant on her phone and wonders if she could ever grow something of that scale in their humble garden. She leans in to get his opinion, making Junsu feel incredibly flustered and far too aware of her presence. She even suggests that if they manage to grow something successful together, they should share the harvest as a team. Rhea watches this exchange with eyes like a hawk, sensing that the dynamic between her sister and her assistant has shifted into a territory that requires her immediate and forceful investigation. Junsu tries to make himself useful by volunteering to peel some fruit for the ladies, hoping the kitchen will offer a temporary escape from the tension. He struggles with a simple apple, accidentally carving away far too much of the fruit while trying to maintain his professional facade. His peace is short-lived as Rhea follows him into the kitchen and corners him against the counter with a look of intense curiosity. She demands to know what exactly is happening between him and her younger sister, noting that Yoon has suddenly become much more accepting of his presence. Feeling the pressure of her gaze, Junsu clumsily admits that there have been several sussy instances between him and Yoon lately. He quickly clarifies that it is definitely not a true cardio connection, but rather a strange arrangement where she tolerates his impulses to a certain extent. He even mentions that Yoon expressed a desire to end their secret lessons soon, which only makes Rhea more skeptical of his intentions. She wonders aloud what her sister could have possibly done to deserve being the recipient of all his suppressed energy and questions the true nature of their relationship. Junsu admits that he is worried Yoon might be concerned about him turning his attention to other women, which earns him a sharp and chilling glare from the older sister. Rhea notes that he is surprisingly honest for a former thug, but suggests that there are depths to her sister's feelings that even he might not understand yet. She takes the knife from his trembling hand to finish the fruit herself, leaving Junsu to retreat into a state of silent panic. Meanwhile, in the other room, Yoon reflects on her own growing frustration and hopes she isn't foolish enough to actually rely on someone with such a rough background. As they sit down to share the snack, the conversation turns to the sleeping arrangements for the night, since the porch is soaked by the relentless rain. Junsu mentions that he might have to sleep in the kitchen to stay dry, but, to his absolute shock, Rhea suggests that he should just sleep in the main room with both of them. She notes that she stays up late reading anyway, and that having him nearby on the floor wouldn't be much of a distraction. She even playfully asks if the two of them were hoping for some sussy time together while she wasn't around, which makes Junsu feel like he is walking directly into a high-stakes trap. He expects Yoon to be outraged by the suggestion, but the younger sister surprises everyone by hesitating and then admitting she doesn't mind the idea of them all sleeping in the same room for just one night. She tries to maintain her dignity by claiming that nothing sussy could possibly happen while they are all together. As Rhea smiles with a chilling look of satisfaction, Junsu realizes that the rain has trapped him in a very small space with two very dangerous women, and his hopes for a peaceful night have officially washed away. The rain shows no sign of stopping as Junsu hauls his bedding into the cramped main house while feeling the weight of the awkward situation. Rhea watches him with a critical eye and comments on the clutter, suggesting he should spend some time organizing the small space to make it feel less suffocating. Junsu tries to offer an excuse for the mess, but he is quickly shut down by her commanding presence. She reminds him that he is currently in her sister's good graces and should simply focus on that success instead of overthinking his role. Her gaze becomes quite sharp as she tells him to stop asking so many questions and just act as the loyal subordinate he was trained to be. She makes it very clear that his path to freedom and happiness depends entirely on his willingness to follow her instructions without hesitation. As Junsu prepares to head out for the evening, Rhea stops him with a sussy look and reveals that she found the specific cardio protection he was hiding in his pocket. She finds the small number of items inside to be quite amusing and mocks the idea of him making a promise to end his relationship with her sister once the box is empty. She suggests that the equipment might actually be getting in the way of their fun and wonders if he has the courage to win her sister over without relying on it. She encourages him to be bold and take charge of the situation, leaving Junsu to walk out into the rainy courtyard with his mind spinning in circles. He stands in the damp night air and agonizes over whether he should follow the scandalous advice or stick to the promise he made to Yoon. He worries that showing up without the necessary supplies will only lead to a massive fight, yet he cannot help but feel that Yoon might be waiting for him to show some initiative. He sees the light in the bathroom and hears the sound of running water, which convinces him that her decision to wash up right now is a deliberate signal for him to join her. He gathers his courage and slowly pushes the door open, only to be met by a startled Yoon who is wrapped loosely in a towel. Junsu immediately begins to stammer apologies and prepares to run away, but the younger sister surprises him by remaining remarkably calm. She looks him in the eye and mentions that he likely needs to wash up as well, eventually inviting him to step into the steamy room with her. Junsu finds himself standing there in a daze and wrapped in a towel of his own, while the atmosphere becomes thick with tension. Yoon grows impatient with his hesitant behavior and commands him to stop standing like a statue. She even offers to help him wash up with a look of pure determination, and Junsu realizes that his quiet night in the rain has turned into the most stressful lesson of his life. The morning sun spills across the room, where Junsu and Yoon are still fast asleep, looking like a pair of peaceful logs after a very long cardio session for the whole night. Junsu eventually blinks his eyes open and struggles to remember exactly when he drifted off, though he has a vague memory of playing the role of a diligent nurse and cleaning up for her before finally giving in to exhaustion. He watches her sleep for a moment and decides she deserves the extra rest, but his peaceful mood is quickly replaced by a wave of pure panic when he realizes it is already 10 o'clock. He knows that Rhea is the type of person who is up at the crack of dawn, and the thought of her seeing him in such a relaxed state with her sister makes his heart race. He fumbles into his clothes as fast as his tired limbs will allow, desperately hoping to slip away before the resident detective catches him. However, as soon as he opens the door, he is met with the chillingly calm presence of Rhea, who is waiting for him with a knowing smile that suggests she has seen and heard everything. She wastes no time in letting him know that her previous assumptions were wrong, as she realized from her eavesdropping that Yoon wasn't just tolerating him, but was actually enjoying the secret lessons quite a bit. Rhea asserts her dominance by reminding him that he is a man with no money and no background, whose only real talent seems to be the one he displays under the cover of night. The atmosphere turns cold as she issues a direct command for him to stay away from her sister from now on, forbidding him from even talking to her or staying in the same room. Junsu is left baffled by the request, wondering how on earth he is supposed to avoid someone while they are all living under the same tiny roof. Before he can even process the weight of this new ultimatum, she sends him off to prepare breakfast as if their heavy conversation never happened. Junsu feels like he is being pulled in every direction, realizing that he was pushed into a sussy relationship only to be told to abandon it just as things were getting interesting. He eventually tries to find some peace by heading out to the fields, but his escape is cut short when Yoon appears on the porch, looking remarkably grumpy. She is offended that he already forgot their plan to work in the garden together, and Junsu can only offer the sheepish excuse that he was a bit distracted by the chaos of the previous day. This leads to a frantic and embarrassing argument where Yoon blames him for poking the bear and causing all the excitement in the first place. Junsu suggests that next time, they should just wake up together so he doesn't risk getting caught in a compromising position again, which leaves Yoon blushing and wondering if he is already planning their next encounter. Their bickering is interrupted by the sudden reappearance of Rhea, who drags Junsu away by the hand while claiming she needs to borrow him for a moment. Yoon is left standing in the yard, feeling the immense pressure her sister is exerting over the entire household. Rhea leads him to a patch of dirt and commands him to dig a massive hole while she sits nearby and leisurely reads a book. Junsu is forced to use every ounce of his strength under the hot sun, wondering why he is being tasked with such a pointless chore when he has actual farm work to attend to. He worries that if he uses up all his energy here, he will be too exhausted to handle anything else later that night. When he finally finishes the grueling task and asks if it is enough, Rhea looks up from her book with a bored expression and tells him to fill the hole back in and dig a new one somewhere else. Junsu is absolutely stunned by her sudden change of heart, realizing that she is intentionally testing his patience and trying to break his spirit. She reminds him that she is the daughter of his boss and that making a good impression on her is the only way for him to find any success in his new life. She warns him that any sign of arrogance will only make it harder for her to cover up for his secret activities with her sister. Junsu is fuming with internal rage, feeling the sting of her condescending attitude and wondering how much more of this psychological warfare he can stand. He realizes that whether he listens to her or not, he seems destined to lose either way. When he finally tries to walk back to the house to get a simple drink of water, Rhea catches him by the arm and tells him to stay put. She informs him that she will be the one to get the water and commands him not to move even a single step without her permission, while Junsu is left standing in the dirt. The power struggle in the garden reaches a boiling point as Junsu finally yields to Rhea's relentless demands. He tells her to do whatever she wants, prompting a smug satisfaction from the lady as she finally tells him to go take a break. As she walks away with a playful wave, Junsu is left staring at her back, wondering why she is being so difficult, and if his own behavior somehow triggered this sudden change in her attitude. He realizes that staying calm is his only option, as nothing good ever comes from letting things fall apart without a clear plan. Later that afternoon, the domestic chaos continues back at the house when both sisters corner Junsu at the same time. While Yoon tries to get him to help decorate some pots, Rhea sweeps in to drag him away under the guise of preparing dinner. Poor Junsu is literally pulled between them until the older sister successfully hauls him off, leaving a very grumpy Yoon standing in the yard and wondering what on earth is going on with the two of them. The scene shifts to a quiet, shaded area where Junsu is now tasked with fanning Rhea while she leisurely reads a book. No matter how hard he works, she refuses to let him head home before evening, and Junsu begins to realize that she is intentionally keeping him pinned to her side. He wonders if she is doing all of this just to prevent him from spending any more sussy time with her sister. Growing tired of the games, he finally asks her why she is so determined to keep them apart and begs for a genuine reason for her behavior. Rhea shuts him down with a chilling smile, telling him that even if she explained herself, it wouldn't change his situation. Junsu's frustration boils over, and he stands up to demand an answer, making it clear that he is just as stressed as she is. Seeing his determination, Rhea's expression softens into something more serious. She warns him that if he hears the truth, he might actually want to distance himself from Yoon for his own good. She explains that her father has already decided that Yoon will eventually take over the family organization, even though the younger sister prefers a simple life in the country. Rhea reveals that her own studies and hard work are all dedicated to helping her sister carry that heavy burden in the future. She views her sister as a delicate person who needs protection and believes that Junsu's presence as a former thug will only bring scandalous rumors that could ruin Yoon's life. To Junsu's utter surprise, Rhea offers him an entirely different path. She suggests that it is a waste of time for someone like him to be mixed up in their family drama and promises to take care of his future instead. She envisions him having a proper, ordinary job where he can find true love like anyone else. Junsu is left stunned by her offer, realizing that she is actually trying to give him the quiet life he always dreamed of, even if it means leaving Yoon behind. He promises to think it over carefully, feeling the weight of a decision that could change everything. Seeking a moment of clarity, Junsu retreats to the shower to wash away the dirt and the heavy thoughts of the day. He stands under the warm water and reflects on Rhea's proposal, wondering if he is truly capable of living like an ordinary person. He decides that things cannot continue as they are and resolves to settle everything with the younger sister as soon as possible. However, his quiet reflection is shattered when the bathroom door creaks open to reveal a very surprised Yoon. The atmosphere in the steamy room becomes incredibly tense as they both realize they are in a very sussy state. Yoon notes that he has been acting like he has no strength lately and wonders if something bad happened while he was with her sister. Junsu awkwardly apologizes for the intrusion and prepares to leave, but Yoon stops him in his tracks. She points out that Rhea isn't around and mentions that there is no reason they can't be together, since they have already shared so many cardio times. She reaches out to him with a look of quiet determination, leaving Junsu to realize that the complicated game between the two sisters is far from over. The tension in the steamy bathroom reaches a fever pitch as Yoon refuses to let Junsu escape without an explanation for his sudden coldness. She clings to him with a mixture of frustration, demanding to know why he keeps avoiding her and leaving her out of his thoughts. Junsu is caught in a whirlwind of embarrassment and fear, knowing that the older sister could walk in at any moment and end his peaceful life for good. He realizes that if they continue this cardio-like confrontation, he will lose all control over his own resolve. He finally manages to pull away and offers a frantic apology, insisting that it is far too dangerous for them to be seen together before he beats a hasty retreat to the main room to change. While he fumbles with his clothes and tries to dry off, Junsu reflects on the heavy warning Rhea gave him earlier in the day. He realizes that her words about his background as a former thug were likely true, and that getting closer to Yoon would only bring the young lady unnecessary pain and scandal. He decides that for her own protection, he must maintain his distance and act like the professional assistant he was hired to be, even if the thought of cutting her off feels like a heavy weight in his chest. However, his attempt at a fresh start is immediately interrupted when Rhea herself slides the door open with a look that suggests she knows exactly what went down in the shower. Rhea wasted no time in pointing out how suspicious it is for him to emerge from a wash just as her sister was heading in. She continues her psychological games by teasing him about his sussy state, noting that he must be struggling after being denied relief at such a sensitive moment. Junsu tries to defend his character by claiming that his care for the sisters is genuine and goes beyond mere attraction or family status. Rhea finds his sudden burst of honor quite amusing and decides to test his loyalty with an even bolder suggestion. She leans in with a sussy grin and wonders if he would be interested in her instead, noting that his reactions are already telling a very honest story, regardless of his protests. Just as Junsu is about to reach his breaking point under Rhea's relentless flirting, the door opens to reveal a very confused Yoon. The two sisters stare each other down, while Junsu stands between them like a deer in headlights, feeling the immense pressure of their competing interests. Rhea smoothly plays off the situation as if she were simply waiting her turn for the bathroom, but the air remains thick with unspoken questions. Junsu retreats to his sleeping mat that night, feeling completely drained, wondering why both sisters seem so intent on making his life a series of impossible tests. His quiet night is shattered once again when Rhea sneaks into the room, though this time, her usual playful malice is replaced by a strange and somber vulnerability. She kneels beside him and admits that she might have gone too far with her jokes earlier in the day. She confesses that she knows he has genuine feelings for her sister and explains that her interference was actually an attempt to protect them both. She speaks softly about her own history of being broken by her family's reputation and how she doesn't want anyone else to experience the pain of being forced apart because of a background they cannot change. The night takes one final, unexpected turn, as Rhea admits that seeing him struggle makes her feel her own loneliness more deeply. She drops her defensive facade and tells him that she simply wants to feel the presence of someone else nearby to ease the silence of the room. Junsu watches in total shock as the once intimidating daughter of his boss asks if she can simply stay next to him for the remainder of the night. Moonlight spills into the quiet room where Junsu is currently locked in a battle with his own thoughts while Rhea rests beside for comfort. His mind is a chaotic mess of worry as he tries to figure out how to officially end things with Yoon before the misunderstandings get any deeper. He knows the older sister has a valid point about their futures, but her unpredictable nature makes it nearly impossible for him to find a moment of peace. He attempts the classic strategy of pretending to be fast asleep, hoping that if he stays perfectly still, the lady beside him will eventually lose interest and leave him alone. Rhea is far too sharp to be fooled by his bad acting and leans in to whisper a question about whether he is truly drifting off this time. She reminds him that she already caught him faking it once before and finds his desperate silence be quite amusing. He finally sits up in a state of flustered defeat, realizing that there is absolutely no escape from her late-night curiosity. Rhea ignores his suggestions to go back to sleep and instead insists that they spend a little more time talking while the house is quiet. She begins to open up about her younger sister, wondering if Yoon actually enjoys their rustic life as much as she pretends to. She explains that, despite her sister's constant chatter, Yoon is actually someone who struggles to express her true feelings and rarely asks anyone for help. Rhea admits that she has been watching her sister closely and realized that Yoon has undergone a significant change since they arrived in the countryside. The conversation takes a somber turn as Rhea confesses that she originally tried to use Junsu as a way to push her sister back toward their family's city life. She had assumed that if Junsu started viewing Yoon as a woman instead of a superior, her sister would be offended and want to leave immediately. To her surprise, her plan backfired because the two of them actually seemed to find genuine happiness together. She admits that she feels a bit guilty for toying with his feelings, but insists that her intentions were born out of a desire to protect her sister's future. Rhea explains the cold reality that Yoon is destined to inherit their father's business, a heavy burden that the younger sister is currently trying to avoid by hiding in the countryside. She believes that this simple life is just a temporary dream, and that she must support her sister by eventually taking away the very things she desires most. Junsu listens in stunned silence, realizing that Rhea's harsh behavior was actually a calculated attempt to prevent a scandal that could ruin both of their lives. He wonders if this means she will finally leave him alone now that the truth is out in the open. However, Rhea has a new and much more personal confession to make before the night is over. She admits that while she was eavesdropping on his cardio lessons with Yoon, she felt a strange and unfamiliar pang of jealousy. Seeing the two of them looking so happy made her realize how much she was missing in her own life. She looks at Junsu with a look of pure sussiness and wonders if he can help her experience that same sense of connection. She suggests that just for tonight, they should forget about their complicated roles and simply interact as normal cardio partners, leaving Junsu to realize that his night is about to become even more complicated than he ever imagined. Later, the atmosphere in the room remains incredibly heavy as Rhea maintains her bold and challenging stance, demanding to know how Junsu plans to handle the situation he has found himself in. Junsu feels like his brain is short-circuiting as he tries to find a way out of the predicament, eventually realizing that his only hope is to offer a dramatic bow of submission. He promises to do absolutely anything to lighten her mood and fix the mess he has caused, which seems to catch the older sister off guard. Her playful malice fades into a look of quiet contemplation, as if she is weighing his loyalty against her own complicated plans. They settle into a slightly more relaxed routine as Junsu begins to give her a steady back massage, hoping that some manual labor will help ease the tension. Rhea mentions that her earlier confidence was mostly an act based on things she had seen before, noting that these types of social skills are actually vital for someone in her position. She speaks about the necessity of being able to influence powerful people in the future, which makes Junsu realize that her constant games are actually a survival mechanism. He begins to see the hidden weight she carries as the older sister who feels responsible for everyone's success. The conversation takes an even more personal turn, as Rhea suggests that they should continue these sussy meetings whenever her sister isn't around. She believes that getting to know each other in such an sussy way is actually the most logical path forward for everyone involved. She reminds him that Yoon is still struggling with family matters and that their secret arrangement is the best way to prevent any rumors that could ruin her sister's reputation. Junsu is left feeling like he is caught in a high-stakes double-agent mission, realizing that keeping a secret from Yoon is going to be the hardest task he has ever faced. The next day, Junsu finds himself back in his farming gear, though his mind is far away from the sweet potatoes he is supposed to be harvesting. He reflects on Rhea's claims and realizes that he has been far too passive, allowing one sister to dictate the entire narrative without ever hearing the other side. He decides that he cannot just sit around and do nothing, while his life becomes a tangled mess of instructions and hidden agendas. He resolves to find Yoon and finally ask her about her own feelings, hoping that the truth will be simpler than the games he has been playing. His plan is interrupted when Yoon herself appears at the gate, looking remarkably different in a soft sundress and carrying a tray of snacks. She explains that she grew worried when he didn't come back for lunch and decided to bring some steamed sweet potatoes and a bottle of rice wine to the field. They sit together on the shaded wooden porch, and the atmosphere is thick with a mixture of comfort and unspoken tension. Junsu decides to use the drink to help break the ice, gulping down his cup in hopes of finding the courage to speak his mind. However, the situation quickly takes a humorous and chaotic turn as Yoon, who previously claimed she didn't like drinking, starts gulping down the rice wine like it was water. She becomes visibly tipsy and much more emotional than usual, accusing Junsu of avoiding her and making everything feel incredibly awkward lately. She admits that seeing him walk away from her in the bathroom really hurt her pride and wonders if he finds her presence to be a burden. As she leans in with watery eyes, she suggests that they finally stop hiding behind their roles and share their real stories with each other. Yoon remains on the porch in a rare state of honesty, fueled by the rice wine, and she challenges Junsu to be just as truthful with her as she is with him. Junsu realizes that if they are going to have a genuine conversation, the alcohol has to go, so he firmly takes the bottle away and tells her that he wants to hear her heart rather than just the wine talking. Yoon looks small and admits that the whole situation feels strange and vulnerable, but she truly wants him to listen to whatever she has to say. Junsu tentatively asks if her desire for a simple life is really about her fear of inheriting the family business, but this hits a major nerve and her face immediately darkens with suspicion. She realizes he must have been talking to Rhea and feels a deep sense of betrayal, lamenting that he is just like everyone else who makes assumptions about her life without ever asking for her perspective. In a fit of pique, she declares that she has finished talking and storms off, leaving Junsu to wonder if he just made a catastrophic mistake that will end their fragile connection forever. He watches her go while feeling the weight of her anger as she calls herself a hot-tempered person and snaps that he should not have bothered getting involved if he was not ready for the consequences. Junsu is left alone in the yard, clutching his head and wondering how to fix a situation that seems to be spiraling out of control. He reflects on how he was pushed into a relationship he never asked for and is now being blamed for trying to understand the person he was forced to be with. The atmosphere at the dinner table that evening is cold enough to freeze their meal, and Rhea sits there with a cheerful smile while noting the incredibly long faces of her companions. She wonders aloud if something bad happened, and while Junsu tries to play it off as nothing, Yoon continues to radiate pure frost. When Junsu tries to offer a small peace gesture by giving her a choice piece of food, it turns into a brief chopstick battle that only highlights the massive gap between them. Rhea watches the entire awkward display with a look of pure entertainment, sensing that her psychological games are working better than she intended. After dinner, Junsu finds himself sitting on the porch, feeling completely suffocated by the tension, and decides that a late-night walk is the only way to clear his head. He does not get far before Rhea appears like a shadow behind him, asking if he is running away because things are too awkward with her sister. She cheerfully insists on tagging along, figuring that Yoon needs some alone time anyway, and deciding that Junsu is officially her partner for the evening. As they stroll through the quiet village, Rhea teases him about the source of the conflict and laughs when he admits he brought up the family business. She tells him that her sister's temper tantrums are just a regular part of their lives and that he should not take it personally because things will eventually blow over. However, Junsu is far from comforted, feeling like he is caught in a storm that shows no signs of passing. Rhea suddenly shifts the mood and tells Junsu that he looks far too tense and needs a different way to relax. She suggests that she is the only person who truly understands his current frustration and offers to help him forget his worries in a much more sussy way. Junsu is completely blindsided as she grows more sussy, whispering that she is finally being honest about her own desires. Junsu stares out into the moonlight, realizing that his quiet life in the countryside has officially become a complicated nightmare, where he is trapped between one sister's anger and the other sister's bold advances. Under the warm, fading light of the afternoon, Junsu and Rhea make their way into the secluded greenhouse, where the sliding door clicks shut to seal them away from the rest of the world. Rhea looks around with a playful sense of wonder, noting that she had no idea they were even allowed to step inside such a private area. Junsu is quick to explain that he is usually the only person who spends time here, but his explanation only gives her more ammunition to tease him. She points out that it would be quite troublesome for him if anyone were to catch them together in what he considers his own personal sanctuary. The atmosphere becomes even more tense when she wonders aloud if he has ever brought her sister into this hidden spot for their own sussy meetings. Junsu is immediately flustered by the suggestion and frantically tries to clarify that his words were not meant to imply anything scandalous. Rhea is far from convinced and continues to poke fun at the situation, wondering what kind of sussy activities the two of them might have been cooking up in the shadows. She leans in with a sussy glint in her eyes, asking for just a slight hint of what usually goes on behind these plastic walls. As she begins to prepare her clothing with a look of feigned curiosity, Junsu feels his heart hammering against his ribs and realizes that his composure is rapidly slipping away. He clumsily suggests that they should probably take a seat because standing around in such a high-stakes silence feels far too awkward for his comfort. As he settles onto a small plastic stool, he finds himself lost in a whirlwind of internal conflict, wondering if it is truly wise to get involved in a situation that he barely understands. He realizes that despite his better judgment, he has already gone much too far to suddenly turn back and claim innocence. Rhea drops to her knees before him with a look of pure encouragement, telling him that there is no need to look at her with such worry or hesitation. She insists that his only job is to be completely honest about what he wants, while she graciously offers to handle the heavy lifting as a form of charity work for the afternoon. Junsu is completely overwhelmed by her bold approach, reflecting on how every interaction with the older sister only makes his life 100 times more complicated. He admits to himself that he is far too caught up in the intensity of the moment to even consider following his original plan of staying professional. Rhea looks up at him with a cheerful and slightly mocking grin, wondering if the experience feels as good as he expected it to. She makes it clear that she is willing to do absolutely anything he wants, but Junsu can only offer a weak and unconvincing claim that he is perfectly fine. His mind is a chaotic mess as he realizes he should be rejecting her advances, yet he finds himself unable to say no directly when faced with such an offer. She reminds him of how he acted like a total bulldozer when things got emotional the day before, and tells him that he has nothing to be scared of as long as he follows her lead. Finally reaching his breaking point, Junsu decides that he cannot leave things on such a frustrating note after everything he has been through lately. He casts his reservations aside and decides to take a much more aggressive approach, taking charge of the situation with a sudden burst of confidence. Rhea is actually quite impressed by his sudden change in attitude, noting with a laugh that it is the very first time he has actually had the courage to ask her for a favor. They continue their cardio lesson in the quiet shadows of the greenhouse. After their intense cardio session in the greenhouse, Junsu and Rhea catch their breath in the quiet shadows while the weight of their shared secret settles between them. Rhea looks remarkably satisfied with the results of their lesson, noting that she feels a strange sense of relaxation whenever she is with him. She leans in with a playful smile and suggests that, since they have already shared such a cardio moment, they should simply start acting like true cardio partners to help fix his rough personality. Junsu is absolutely floored by the proposal, standing there in a daze as he wonders what kind of courage he would need to be with the daughter of his former boss. He begins to overthink every possible consequence, worrying that she might just be testing his loyalty or setting him up for another one of her psychological traps. He tries to point out that they are moving far too quickly and that jumping into a relationship feels like skipping several necessary steps. Rhea remains undeterred and mentions that his earlier interactions with her sister were already a mess, so he might as well embrace the chaos and choose a side. She warns him that messing with her sister could actually get him killed, leaving him with no real choice but to think very carefully about what he truly wants for his future. Several days pass in a heavy silence that feels like the calm after a massive storm. Junsu spends his time sitting on the wooden porch and gulping down cold drinks to soothe his frayed nerves while reflecting on the constant pressure from both sisters. He finds himself stuck in a freezing cold war with Yoon, who refuses to even look at him, while Rhea continues to watch his every move with a silent and knowing gaze. The lack of communication is driving him to the edge of madness, as no one will tell him exactly what he is supposed to do or how he should behave to make things right. He realizes that Yoon is an absolute mystery who can be kind one moment and furious the next, making it impossible for him to guess what is going on in her head. Driven by a sudden burst of determination, Junsu decides that he cannot keep suffering through this silent treatment on his own. He spots Yoon sitting quietly on the porch and realizes that if he misses this chance to have a smooth conversation, he might never get another shot at fixing their relationship. He awkwardly approaches her and suggests that they should just sit together and feel the breeze, hoping the relaxed atmosphere will help her open up. Yoon remains defensive and tries to ignore him, but Junsu remains firm and points out that he has no way of knowing what he did wrong if she won't even give him a clue. The argument quickly heats up as Yoon demands to know why he even cares about her story in the first place. Junsu confesses that he is tired of always starting off on the wrong foot and admits that he has no idea how she truly feels about him. He insists that he needs a straight answer about how she wants to be treated because he simply can't take the tension anymore. Yoon reaches her breaking point and shouts that she doesn't even know the answers herself before blaming herself for getting involved with him in the first place. She tells him to just leave her alone and storms toward the gate, but Junsu realizes that letting her go now will only make things worse. He decides that a forced discussion is the only way forward and suddenly scoops her up in his arms, ignoring her protests as he carries her off to finally settle their differences once and for all. Yoon struggles and kicks with all her might, demanding to be set free and wondering if Junsu has suddenly lost his hearing. She is absolutely baffled by his sudden burst of boldness, but Junsu remains firm and explains that she has forced his hand by constantly avoiding him whenever he tries to have a serious talk. He eventually sets her down on the porch, but the battle is far from over as she continues to punch and kick him in a fit of pure frustration. He admits that he has made plenty of mistakes, but he insists that they cannot keep living under the same roof with their mouths shut. He tells her that things are different now, and he sincerely wants to understand what she is thinking, regardless of his role as her assistant. The argument takes a sharper turn when Yoon accuses him of having a hidden agenda, wondering if he is only trying to climb the social food chain by getting close to her. She even suspects that his previous kindness was a total lie, designed to win her over for his own benefit. Junsu is quick to defend himself, explaining that he was genuinely worried after hearing about her family troubles and had no intention of using her. Yoon remains skeptical and tells him to mind his own business, yet she eventually sighs and agrees to share her story if he promises to be completely honest with her from now on. She issues a fiery warning that she will take his life herself if he ever dares to lie to her again, a threat that Junsu takes with a mixture of respect and nervous realization. As they settle into a more peaceful rhythm on the porch, Yoon finally opens up about the heavy weight on her shoulders. She reveals that her father is pushing her to take over the family business, a legacy he built from the ground up as a gang. She feels like everyone around her cares more about the potential profits of her leadership than her actual happiness. Junsu wonders why the responsibility has to fall on her instead of her older sister, and she explains that her father follows an old-school rule where the eldest must take the throne. She laments that the organization has changed into a brainy business that no longer has room for muscle, making her feel even more out of place. Junsu finds himself reflecting on his own past, admitting that his lack of education and reliance on his fists made him useless in the modern world very quickly. He confesses that he owes the boss a great deal and had secretly hoped to find a place for himself back in the city, but he realizes now that those were just stupid dreams. Yoon notes that having the courage to get close to the boss's daughter is either brave or completely crazy, but she admits that he has always been surprisingly nice to her. She confesses that she never really had feelings for anyone before and originally used their secret lessons just to keep him calm and tame while they lived together. She worries that once she inevitably leaves this quiet life, their connection will vanish and they will never see each other again. Junsu looks out at the garden and notes that if she returns to the city now, nothing in her life will actually change. He asks her what she truly wants to do with her future, but she can only admit that she has no idea. He offers to help her in any way he can, promising that even if he isn't the smartest man, he wants to be a source of encouragement for her. He suggests that while she is here in the countryside, she should feel free to let go of her burdens and do whatever she truly desires. Yoon breaks down in tears, admitting how much she hates the family business and everything associated with it, yet she feels trapped with no other options. Junsu gently comforts her and apologizes for forcing the conversation, but he makes it clear that he is always there to listen to her honest feelings. As she tries to compose herself, she looks up at him with teary eyes and wonders exactly what he plans to do with her next. Yoon sits on the porch with a mixture of tears and suspicion, wondering why Junsu is putting so much effort into staying by her side. She realizes that if he were just a normal assistant, he would have likely brushed off her worries instead of going out of his way to offer comfort. Junsu feels a bit flustered and claims his only motivation is seeing her look so troubled, but Yoon finds his sudden composure highly suspicious. She notes that he usually overreacts when trying to explain himself, making his current calm demeanor feel like he might be hiding something. The tension grows as she tells him to stop beating around the bush and get straight to the point. She wonders if there is truly nothing he wants from her, especially after their previous cardio sessions and that chaotic encounter in the shower. She admits that she is completely confused by her own heart and finds it impossible to say they are nothing to each other after everything they have shared. She grows frustrated when he can't seem to provide a straight answer about their relationship, eventually telling him to just forget it and get out of her hair. Just as she is about to retreat back into her shell, Junsu forced her to start a cardio session. The long evening workout finally draws to a close as Junsu and Yoon catch their breath under the quiet night sky. Junsu realizes that he has officially reached his limit for the day and decides that this must be the final round of their intense cardio session. He reflects on how complicated his life has become, noting that the more he gets involved with the younger sister, the more he finds himself unable to walk away from the intense pull between them. As they sit on the porch to recover, Junsu points out the late hour and suggests they should head back inside since neither of them has had anything to eat. Yoon, however, is not quite ready to end the moment and asks if they can stay just a little bit longer. She tells him that she doesn't want to do anything scandalous and simply wants to enjoy the fresh air until they have both cooled down. Junsu finds her sudden softness a bit surprising and settles in beside her, enjoying a rare moment of peace that isn't dictated by their usual bickering. The tranquil atmosphere is shattered by the sound of approaching footsteps as Rhea appears like a silent detective in the darkness. Both Junsu and Yoon are hit with a wave of pure panic as the older sister wonders what on earth they are doing out so late without telling anyone. Yoon tries to play it off as a total misunderstanding, offering the hilariously flimsy excuse that she was only sitting on Junsu as a joke. Rhea stares at the obvious signs of their recent activities with a look of chilling skepticism, noting that Yoon is drenched in sweat and clearly needs a shower. She mocks the idea of them just doing a bit of stretching and makes it clear that she isn't buying their exercise story for a single second. The situation becomes even more stressful when Rhea corners Junsu alone to investigate his true motives. She stares him down with a gaze that feels like a physical weight, wondering if he has finally decided to choose her sister over her. Junsu is flustered and tries to explain that he had no such intention, claiming he only wanted to clear the air and end the awkwardness between them. Rhea finds his excuses to be pathetic and reminds him that her sister should be off limits to someone in his position. She suggests that if he is feeling frustrated, he should just handle it himself or try talking to her instead of constantly running back to Yoon. Rhea continues her psychological attack, accusing Junsu of holding on to false hope when he knows he can never truly have a future with someone like her sister. She tells him to take the hint and go away before things get even worse, but Junsu finds that he has finally reached his breaking point. Instead of bowing his head like a loyal subordinate, he stands his ground and demands to know what she is actually thinking. He reminds her that she was the person who got him involved with Yoon in the first place, even giving him instructions that were meant to make her sister hate him. In a sudden burst of dominance that catches Rhea completely off guard, Junsu reaches out and firmly grabs her arm. He tells her that he is finished following her confusing orders and insists that she state her true intentions once and for all. He is tired of being pulled back and forth between the two sisters and realizes that he cannot resolve the situation by staying silent. Rhea looks at him with a mixture of shock and genuine irritation, realizing that her assistant has finally decided to cross the line and challenge her authority. The physical standoff in the courtyard remains tense as Rhea stares down Junsu, wondering if he actually has the nerve to try and intimidate her. Junsu is clearly reaching the end of his rope and explains that while he has no desire to be a rebel, he is desperate for a real reason to keep following her confusing commands. Rhea maintains her trademark smug expression and claims that she is actually doing him a massive favor by teaching him how to control his explosive temper. She warns him that if he ever hopes to live a normal life after leaving this place, he needs to learn how to keep his impulses in check before they ruin his future. Junsu admits that he was tempted to just keep his head down because obedience is the easiest path to a comfortable life, but he refuses to achieve success by being a bully to Yoon. He decides that if climbing the social ladder requires him to be cruel to the younger sister, he would much rather stay a humble laborer for the rest of his days. Rhea seems to accept his stubbornness with a mysterious smile and walks away, leaving Junsu to wonder if he just won the argument or walked into another one of her psychological traps. Later that night, Junsu finds himself tossing and turning on his sleeping mat, realizing that the more he talks to Rhea, the less he actually understands her. His late-night brooding is interrupted when the sliding door creaks open to reveal a very restless Yoon, who claims she only stepped out to get a glass of water. They sit together in the quiet room, and Yoon admits she is terrified that her older sister has already figured out their secret after catching them together earlier. She knows that Rhea is incredibly sharp and fears that her sister will think poorly of her for being so close to their assistant. Junsu tries to be a source of comfort, suggesting that they shouldn't say anything unless Rhea explicitly asks them about it. He even mentions that Yoon is free to tell her sister the truth if it makes her feel more comfortable, but this only sends the younger sister into a state of pure panic. She explains that While Rhea is usually very easygoing, she becomes an entirely different person when it comes to men and relationships. Yoon recalls her difficult years in school where people only approached her because of her family's wealth or background, often leading to bullying and physical fights. She remembers how Rhea was always the popular one who stood in the front lines to protect her and ward off anyone with bad intentions. Because of that history, Yoon feels a deep sense of loyalty and finds it incredibly difficult to keep such a huge secret from the only person who ever truly looked out for her. In a rare moment of complete honesty, she tells Junsu that he is the only man she has ever spoken to this much and admits that he is truly the only one for her. Junsu is completely blindsided by the sudden confession, feeling his face turn bright red as he realizes how far their relationship has progressed. They share a sussy moment on the floor, and for a brief moment, all the drama of the household seems to vanish into the night air. Of course, the peace is shattered when the door flies open and Rhea herself barges in while looking for her sister. She finds the two of them looking far too cozy and playfully asks if she interrupted their fun, causing Yoon to jump up and offer a series of nonsensical excuses about just having a simple chat. Rhea doesn't buy the story for a second and continues to tease her sister about having sussy thoughts while laying beside their assistant. She shifts her tone to a more serious note, warning Yoon to watch herself because Junsu is still a man with a dangerous gangster background who might become annoying if he is rubbed the wrong way.